Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men have asked me for the right words to say to be more attractive, desirable, and more of a leader. And I've found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines. Because at the root of a connected and affectionate relationship and being more effective and inspiring at work is your ability to influence others. But most often, influence is not gained or lost with words. It's from what I call the invisible factors. So I created a quick guide for you called 3 Ways Men Lose Influence at Work and with Women, so you can understand how these invisible factors work and what has women and colleagues both more inspired to say yes. I think you're also going to be surprised to find out the moment when your influence actually begins. So grab the guide for free at shanajamescoaching.com/3ways. That's shanajamescoaching.com/3 and the word ways, WAYS. Or you can text ALIVE to 44144. That's the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. I hope you enjoy the guide and this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited today to talk about one of my favorite topics, what women want. And I guess I wouldn't say this is all my favorite topic. It's what women want that men often overlook or don't grasp about women. So I have an amazing guest here today, Tobin Zivon. Tobin, welcome.
Thank you, Shana. So happy to be here.
Tobin and I have circled around each other for years, and Tobin is best known as, really a catalyst for transformation and awakening. And he has been training for most of his life, including Zen trainings and the Ridwan approach, which is actually a spiritual school that I'm involved in as well. He's done a teacher training program with a South African Tantra teacher. He's apprenticed with a transpersonal psychotherapist. He's written books and, really, Tobin loves working with men and women and couples in the realms of love and intimacy and sacred sexuality. So, Tobin, one thing I really appreciate about you is that you've got the therapy angle, you've got the spiritual angle, you've got the communication and, relationship angle, right?
All of it. Yeah.
All of
Pretty
it.
full spectrum at this point. I have been full. I dove in. Let's just say that when I was, I think 20, I just dove in full on and was like, what are the best teachers who's actually living this stuff, who can actually help me in changing the direction that my path of karma seems to be heading in, which does not look good in the long run. If I don't change things, this could get really, really not so good in the long run. Yeah. My lineage and what I was born into and what I was sort of on the path I was headed down was like, oh my God, it scared me enough that I got super devoted and sincere. Yeah. And I got super blessed with, meeting and bumping into some really, really, really masterful human beings who let me in on different ways of living and showing up, and then that led at first it was just about just like, okay, save me from myself in a certain way, like let me wake up to what's more true, what's more healthy, what's more possible as a human being. And then at some point that just naturally unfolded and evolved. And it was like, as I got through some of the more superficial, thick layers of my conditioning and what wasn't me, it just revealed that underneath all that, what was me and what is me is just like a heart, just like a fountaining heart space where love, where intimacy is sort of the natural place that I gravitate toward and, love to bathe in and love to help others.
Right? As a man, and I see you as a strong, powerful man, right? To also be able to embody heart. And I think that's probably a really good, you can keep telling us stories about your life. I like hearing that, but it's also really great lead in a way to what women are really wanting that can get confusing because, a lot of men come to me and say, well, my partner or, you know, in past relationships, women have wanted me to be more forthcoming or to be more emotional.
Yeah.
And yet when I do, it doesn't quite work. And what is going on here?
Oh man, yeah, exactly. Being a man and doing our best to show up masterfully with women is, you know, it's the ultimate conundrum. It's we're being asked to do some things that, for one, I think are just difficult for anybody, but especially given the culture we grew up in and what we've all kind of learned to do and how we've learned to act and all of that, all of our conditioning in there. And then our woman is saying, come on, be strong, lead me, initiate me, take me. And then at the exact same time, they're saying, no, be exactly 100% attuned, never override my subtle needs for, you know, perfect listening and attunement, you know, or else be softer and be in your heart, but take me as a man, you know, like, how do I do all that at the same time, man? Oh God.
Okay, I think you just laid out the whole conundrum, right?
Oh God. And to just point out one more layer that makes it extra tricky. Now, I know this is true of every person, including women, but I just see it in men, this little underbelly in there that when we are given feedback from a woman that is anything less than, oh my God, you're the best, you're so amazing, you're a god, thank you for everything you're doing, anything less than the most positive feedback when we show up in whatever way, let's say it's sexual, let's say it's sensual, let's say it's just us trying to give our best as a partner, let's say it's as a father trying to like show up for the family union, just like day in, day out. Anything less than like you're amazing crumbles. There's this little tender underbelly of the male ego and psyche that is just so it just like crumbles when we get feedback that is any bit shaming or negative at all.
Right, and you referred to in the beginning, right? The cultural expectation is that men have it together, they're the rock, you know, they're competent, right? And so whew, it's a lot.
It's
right? So
amazing.
But you know what I know about you is that you've done a lot of work, and so you support men to be able to shift. So maybe this is a first place we can go into, right? Like, how do you support men to be able to shift from, oh my God, that feedback can crumble me, to, you know, this is my wording for it. I'm a great man. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to meet this person in every way he or she needs all the time. You know, how do you help them actually hold feedback as actually a really beautiful opportunity to grow and step into more of himself?
Well, that's exactly it. We just need frames of reference or kind of models for what we're doing as men. And a couple of the metaphors I love that I throw around a lot with the couples I work with and the men I work with is that we're becoming black belts in love. We're actually in a training program to become black belt men, black belt lovers, black belt partners on the planet with our partners. And I think for a lot of guys that can help, like, oh, okay, if I had to sign up to become a martial artist and I wanted to be like as good as Bruce Lee, let's say, it would take some time and I'd probably get smacked in the face along the way, but that's part of the journey. And so these metaphors are these just kind of meta understandings of what we're showing up for and how it works and how we're designed and how our women are designed and how people on planet Earth are designed. You kind of get these metaphors and understandings of what we're showing up for that just give us more resilience, more perseverance, and more willingness to devote ourselves to the path, even though it's challenging along the way.
Yes. I mean, I'm loving this. I think the metaphors are great. And I like the black belt one because I just imagined, you know, in a martial arts class, right? Not only, or in love, whereas in a martial arts class, you're getting kicked in the face or you're bruised or whatever. You're not being watched by the closest person to you who has access to the deepest places in your heart.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
right. Then it's actually like the most masterful practice, right?
It really is the highest level art, I think, on planet Earth, to learn to love well, to learn to show up as we could just call it a lover in the biggest way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel like my journey has culminated in. It's just like, how do you become a true lover? And what does that mean? It's bigger than just like, a guy who's great at making love. It's a guy who loves well, who relates well, who knows how to dance in the realms of intimacy and care and ever deepening connection.
Can we put that in concrete terms too? So it's like, what is a man who actually can love well and be intimate? How would you describe that for a man who, needs it really concretely?
So basically, a guy who can show up in a relationship in a way that he shows up. So another metaphor I often use is that relationship, intimacy, sexuality is like a dance. So we're learning to tango dance. Like that's another metaphor, maybe even better than the martial art metaphor. So to concretely give a person like a taste of what does that mean to become like a truly masterful lover as a man, it means that you have the capacity to show up in conversation, in long-term relationship, and in the bedroom in a way that brings out those potentials that are ultimately beautiful, divine, loving, and good for you and anybody you're with. And that can include even friendships and even, at this point, it becomes sort of all pervasive. It's how you walk down the street. It's how you go into the grocery store and interact with the people there. It's how you dive in the ocean and how you interact with the fish,
Well, right.
So,
and it's like, I kind of imagine in a way, thinking of another metaphor of an artist, right? Because you could have a conversation that's kind of like paint by number, just like a basic template, or you could have a conversation that's more like, a master artist who suddenly reveals things that the other person, or in this case, a woman, hasn't actually seen before or felt in herself before.
That's right. And it's a beautiful, this is why this becomes a little challenging to talk about at the level that I'm wanting to impart and invite guys into experiencing. It isn't paint by numbers. It's not like, do this technique, touch her clit in this way, this many times. And, you touch her in this way and say these words. Some of that can come into play, and that can help the art become that much more rounded out and that much more impactful. But ultimately, it's exactly like you're saying. This is something that moves somebody. The way you show up moves them through and through in the depth of their being.
Right.
Like you walk into a room and people go, oh, they feel it in a way that they feel enhanced and opened, and wow, something kind of almost like scintillating and alive just entered the space. And my women are very receptive people. Human beings are very receptive, and we have like almost like we're walking around like with these snake tongues on our skin, and we feel, ooh, that just came in the space. Ooh, who's that? And then it gets even more profound once you interact in conversation, once you take that woman or person on a date and you're diving a little deeper, once you get into the bedroom, once you kiss her. Whoa, the art of kissing, we could just take this down to one thing. Like kissing can be the most profound entry point into intimacy, divinity, love, bliss, goodness of epic proportions. So this is what I want to invite guys into. It's like a way of being. It's a way of showing up. And the fundamentals of that are like an art. It is an art that gets us in the doorway, gets us in the dojo of love.
It's interesting. I talk about them as these invisible factors, right? Because it's not every man can say the same, or two men can say the same thing to the same woman at the same moment, right? And it can come off as totally different. And so the way I talk about it, I'm curious how you talk about it, is there are these invisible factors of how awake your body is, and how attuned you can bring your attention, right? How present you can be, and how much you are actually able to receive. So there's all these invisible things that have nothing to do with our words. And I'm curious for you, because it sounds like you have a similar mindset. How do you help men let's go back to the conundrum in the beginning, right? Tap into these invisible factors in a way that then they can deal with, oh my God, I'm supposed to be strong and loving.
Yeah.
All of these things at the same time. And this is a total shit show.
Right. So we just need some, some just basic bottom line. Okay, from now on, in your endeavors to become this black belt lover as a man, let's apply these principles. Ready, set, go. Ready, set, go. Here we are in the dojo of life, the dojo of love and life. Here's the sort of the foundational fundamental principles from here on out. So let me just highlight those. The main ones are willingness to be in beginner's mind, beginner's heart. Like, I don't know, but I want to know. I'm wherever I am, and I'm willing to get better. Yes. Like, this spirit of innocence and sincerity goes a long way. As soon as you feel that in a guy, like, I know some guys who are like white belt lovers, and they're kind of shaming themselves and thinking they should be further along. And I'm like, no, just start where you are. Yeah. Bring innocence, bring curiosity, bring willingness to be a learner, bring willingness to say, I have something to offer and I'm willing to get better. Now go have a date with a woman, try on this new mindset, and even just share it with her right out. Like, I think I'm a white belt lover, but I really want to become a black belt. And, right then and there, everything got 1,000 times better than it was for the date he had before that, when he was like all awkward and trying to pretend and trying to get somewhere and kind of feeling down about himself. Right. So one
Especially
of the principles.
Like, oh, I think I'm a white belt, but I want to learn you.
Yeah, well, that's
not that he has to say it in that way, right? But it's like,
oh, why not?
Willingness is amazing, and the willingness for someone as a man, I'll say as a woman, right? For the willingness for a man to know me and get to know me and attune to me and kind of, understand what gives me pleasure is way more exciting than someone who's like, I got all the moves. I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing, babe. Let me, let me show you. Exactly. So this is a more nuanced, and we can just keep the list going. We'll just add this to the list. So not only beginner's mind or beginner's heart, and the sincerity and willingness to not be further along than you are. It's kind of like a humble, sincere, shame-free approach to yourself. And then the next one is, with each and every person you're with, to bring that sincerity personally to her. Like, hey, well, who are you? What are you about? Like, she is your temple. She is your goddess, to use a cliche word these days. But truly, if you can get into the essence of what I'm, again, trying to impart, it's a spirit of mystery, of amazement, of wow, teach me how to be with you in a way that just lights you up, baby. Like that will just, again, draw out that which is possible between you in that dance.
Right. Now, I can imagine some men being like, wait a minute, I'm telling her to teach me, or I'm asking her to teach me.
Yes. So
learned about I'm supposed to be competent and already
exactly. So we are in the land of paradox, the land of slippery slopes, the land of both and, the land of how the hell does a person do this and this at the exact same time. So yes, these questions are perfect. Okay, so I often talk about finding the sweet spot and turning dials, as if you have like a soundboard, and you turn up the qualities that we've just been describing, but that doesn't mean you turn down the part of you that's like, oh, well, I just had an impulse to pull you in tight and hug you and like grab you by the back of your waist and just pull you in. Like, if you feel an impulse like that, and it feels like it's coming from a healthy skillful core of your masculine being, then please, by all means, follow that, and you will start to learn to be in touch with these impulses, to follow them, to kind of come into that. That's the yummy masculine core that is also wants.
Know whether that's healthy. I mean, I know the way I work with men is I get to be a moment to moment, mirror or reflector, right?
A barometer for it. Yeah.
And for you, how do you help men? Because some men come and they're like, well, it feels like this instinct, but it's too much or it's too primal, or I don't know if it's healthy or not.
Yeah.
How do you work with that?
Again, I say this is the hardest thing in the world. Do your best. Get out there, young Jedi. Find out how it goes. Do your best to be humble. Do your best to experiment. And yes, especially these days, in the wake of Me Too, err a little bit on the side of not pushing too hard with your masculine intensity. But fuck, you're any guy who walks into my door, who shows up in my sphere, in my dojo, so to speak, every guy I've met so far, their heart is so in the right place.
I know.
Most guys listening to this, your heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
And you kind of know. If you're one of those guys who everyone around you is like, dude, you're intense, like dial that down, then I'm not talking to you right now. But the rest of you who are the guys who are like, dude, you are a good man. You are a good man. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being the way you are. Trust this. Experiment with it. Go for it. And then either in the next second or later in the evening after you've made love and you're sitting there sipping tea or whatever you're doing, you say, how was that for you, baby? How did that feel? How are you doing? Let's check in. Going forward, what would you like a little differently? Or what did you feel?
That debrief. I mean, there's something about, and this I think also goes against, a lot of the men.
Cultural conditioning.
Yeah, right. Don't ask because you should already know.
Totally.
But it's so important. I work with men who have been in relationships and, maybe they're not anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, what were the conversations you had in your past relationship about sex or how it was going and what you wanted more of? And for the most part, people say, what do you mean?
What conversations? Exactly.
What conversations? It's like, how can you actually get to know each other more?
Yes. Amen.
Without having those conversations and those debriefs. I mean,
amen. That is an epidemic in our culture. Like even if you watch a romantic comedy or whatever, the whole premise is based on the fact that no one talks.
Yeah.
If they had just checked in, hey, how you feeling about this? Can I tell you my feelings and get a reality check about yours? Then the whole thing wouldn't unfold. It would just be an optimized experience. It would be really great.
To actually make some kind of rom-com with conscious communication.
Like how boring it gets. I mean, in a way, it gets boring in terms of drama and mayhem and ridiculousness, but it gets really, really, really great in terms of yumminess and love and bliss and connection and joy and the sparkle in the people's eyes and all that good stuff. If you just talk now, I'm not saying that we need to become like these spiritual new agey guys who are just like, blah, 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 talk. It's not that. Again, we're looking for that sweet spot. But for most guys, it is going to be like we're talking way more than we ever did. And you just have these conversations that in mainstream culture are, in quotes, the awkward talks.
Yeah.
But you do it in a way, like at this point in my life, with everybody I relate to, it's like you just go in doing it and they're like, there's maybe like a millisecond of awkwardness and they're like, oh, that's what we talked about in this relationship. Awesome. I've been waiting for that. Oh, you really want to know how I'm feeling about you right now? Like, yeah.
You really want to know if something didn't work or if I would have wanted it in a different way. I mean, actually, again, from my woman experience, when men have asked me these questions, I often have cried or just felt so touched and so moved and so then safe and drawn to that man because he's willing to let go of his ego in order to really know me. Yeah.
When this is done in the right way, with that hitting that right note, it is the ultimate aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
It is what opens everything. It's what gets everything just flowing and moving and optimizing over time. So if you know how, like on a first date, I often coach guys. So I have this practice. I call it the relational aligning practice. It's just the most
relational alignment. Did you say?
Yeah, relational aligning practice.
Aligning, okay.
Or alignment, whichever. doesn't matter what you call it. It's just a way of kind of like dropping into these kind of conversations where you just open it up. Hey, how are you? Here's where I'm at. What are you feeling? What? And you can even get creative with it. Like, what scares you to say right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if you weren't shy, what would you tell me right now or ask me? Like, let's pretend we just took a potion where we just got 100% less shy. What would we talk about?
Yeah.
Something like that just opens these conversations and gets the whole aliveness factor moving in the right direction just by doing it. It's already better. But then you get specific information that makes everything even that much better once you go into the dance of intimacy, of sexuality. All of it starts to just unfold in ways that are more and more sweet, more and more magical, more and more enhancing.
Yeah.
And ultimately what I've found, and you just kind of alluded to this, which is that the women you're dancing with, those are your best senseis, in the martial art. They're your teachers.
Yep.
You drew that woman into your life, into your field for a reason. Mm-hmm. She has gifts to give you. She has feedback. She has invitations. She has subtlety that you as a man are just ripe to learn if you have this sincere spirit, this willingness, this openness, this like, okay, I'm just showing up. I'm going to be the best I can. I'm going to apply whatever I got out of that conversation I heard between Tobin and Shayna. I'm like, I know I could try a little more of this, a little less of that. I'm going to have a courageous conversation. I'm going to ask so-and-so. I'm going to bring my masculine presence a little more full-heartedly to the experience. Just whatever it is, go for it. And then be willing to learn. Just ask her. Just be so open. And so it's a reframe. It's like 180-degree turnaround from, oh my God, I'm supposed to be perfect already, and if I get negative feedback, that means something's wrong.
Well, right.
To I'm expecting and ready for and wanting that so-called negative feedback, because that's going to enhance the whole thing in my entire life.
It's a belief that if I were really competent or capable, I would know everything, as opposed to, being a good, whether you want to say a leader or a lover, like that actually includes the not knowing and the learning of the subtleties. I think you and I, we've had this conversation. It's like there are realms of connection that don't involve sex and that do involve sex that open up in profound and ecstatic and blissful and just wild and beautiful ways.
That's for sure.
If as you can open to those subtleties, and it's like you can't learn them without the willingness to not know, or the willingness to set your ego aside and almost have it be crushed or destroyed in a way, right?
Exactly. I mean, this really is, in my opinion, one of the highest spiritual paths. If a man takes this on with sincerity, with the true spirit that I'm here kind of embodying and trying to impart and share, because I know what the fruits of this way of life are. It is so incredibly good, but it's a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it completely melts and annihilates, in quotes, your ego.
Yeah.
But if it's done well, and it's done thoroughly, and it's done with this level of integrity and devotion, and that spirit of like, okay, perseverance, just like you would if you felt the calling to truly be a master at some art, and or a monk who was willing to die for the truth, like that. Put those two together. That's what this path is for anyone who really sets out on it and wants to feel the deepest fruits. Now, you can play at any level. It will always help you at any level you want to do, but ultimately it is a path of ego melting away. Well, I don't like the word annihilation too much, because
but it does in a way feel like the Indiana Jones, like you've got to face the dragon in certain ways.
Yeah, ultimately it does just poof.
I was just thinking, I found myself saying to a man this morning that he was really focused on, then I can learn how to take care of her and I can learn how to give her pleasure. And I was like, yes, and yes. And also don't leave yourself out of the picture, right? This isn't just learning to be a good lover is not just now I'm an even more open-hearted, generous giver.
Pleaser guy. No, right? Exactly. You
get to receive and feel more pleasure and be taken care of and loved.
That's
and
right.
all of that
exactly
too.
Right. And that's what I meant earlier when I said this paradoxical kind of mystery place where, yes, it's true. You become a man who, in quotes, pleases his woman. Like, you kind of like, oh my God. Most women are like, oh my God, I'm so blessed that I got to interact with this man and got to be in this with this man at whatever level was true for us. And so it is pleasing to that woman, but you don't become a pleaser. You're not Mr. Pleaser guy. You are an empowered, regal, freaking lion of a man who happens to know how to really, really please, in quotes, or take, or pleasure, or enhance, or dance with a woman, whatever word you want to use. And again, it's this paradoxical thing of, yes, your heart is there. Like when I'm with a woman and I'm making love, everything in me is just like, there is like a something that just sort of takes over in the direction of, yes, pleasure for you is on the menu, and here it comes. Like, watch out. It's a river flowing in her direction of bliss and pleasure and enhancement and goodness and yum. And yet, at the exact same time, paradoxically, I'm not just there as a pleaser. I'm there as a tango dancing leader of that dance who is 100% enjoying that surging current of energy that is going back and forth between us in a way that just keeps building and building and building as we go.
Yeah.
And so everybody wins, so to speak.
Yes. Well, this is awesome. I mean, I think clearly you and I are very aligned in how we look at this. And I want to go back to the original question of, what do you find, especially in your work with couples, is there anything we're missing that women tend to want that men either overlook or don't quite grasp because there's just a different way of thinking about it, or, the cultural expectations?
Yeah. I mean, it's along the same lines of what we've been touching on. But I think the main thing that I hear from women around where they feel a little frustrated or just kind of like, he's not quite fill in the blank, or men in general are, damn it, fill in the blank. If they could only be a little more, then I'd feel so much better and happier. And the thing that I see is men being less than fully alive in their responsiveness. There's a kind of cut off, conditioned, almost like on autopilot nature that a lot of guys get stuck in.
Yeah.
And so I feel like one of the first and foremost invitations for guys is be willing to be more fluid, be more tender in your heart, a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more willing to, it's kind of like come in touch with your liquid body instead of your rock hard beingness. And again, this is hard to put into words to translate for guys. Like, okay, well, how do I actually do that? So what I often tell guys is be willing to feel uncomfortable feelings more directly than you ever have before. That's a starting point. Just start with the willingness.
Right. Like just the willingness to not try to get over or shove down or dissociate, or like the willingness to actually fully feel the uncomfortable feelings, whether it's uncomfortable, jealousy, all of it, that will actually make you more alive.
Exactly. Which is sort of like the backward, again, so backwards and so compared to what we were taught as men in this culture. But really, if you can even just take this little bit of advice, okay, next time I'm interacting with a woman, I'm just going to pay attention and be like a warrior who's willing to just, it's like the opposite of a heart. It's the, like you're being electrocuted in your guts and your chest and your face and your arms. Like often that's what we're avoiding. We're avoiding discomfort. We're avoiding, in a word, vulnerability. But even guys are like, what do you mean? I don't feel vulnerable. Well, then look for the place where you just feel any kind of discomfort, any bit of awkwardness, any bit of like squirminess might be a good word. Like find your squirminess, feel it in a way that you've never been willing to feel it. Stop being like oil on a hot skillet that just goes up and away from that. And be willing to feel those pockets of discomfort and be a little more subtle, a little more in touch, and a little more fluid with what then flows out, like creative and new and nuanced in the way that you feel and respond out of that, instead of just go with the usual momentum, autopilot, thing that you've been doing most of your life.
Yeah, right. And I think it's concretely understandable in a way when you think about sex and orgasm, right? Where a lot of people's sex life is like, let's try to get to the orgasm and get to that sensation. And there's a way of, getting past the climax back to this level of comfort or something, even though it's really pleasurable, but it's kind of like going for it versus, okay, how can I be here in all of these moments without trying to get somewhere else? How can I I think this is what you're saying. Tell me if I'm getting it too. How can I let, whether it's the anger, the frustration, the jealousy, the wow, I am, pissed at you or disgusted by you or whatever it may be.
Yeah, or I'm so blown away by you. It can even be the positive stuff that gets vulnerable to let yourself feel.
To let yourself actually feel that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I went to the darker parts, right?
Well, it's both. It's so both. We as men are just, a lot of guys are just conditioned into what I call this momentum of their personality, just do, and it's like it shows up pretty much everywhere. You might get a millisecond after the orgasm, you're like, oh, it melts away. Bring it back, get it back in place real quick. You don't want to stay there, but it's like you're saying, that can be the starting point, the middle point, the ending point, the place you begin right again and again and again and again. It's like that's the through line of this new way of being. So that's another one. I think you're highlighting another one of the kind of fundamentals we could put on the list of like, okay, if we do this and then and this piece here,
is this piece of not trying to get away.
Exactly. No agenda for a goal, and a willingness to be with discomfort in a much more direct and subtly in touch way than you usually ever do. Just like you're putting sun on ice, but the sun is your awareness and the ice is your felt experience in your body. Now, this is a key piece of this, in your body, where you feel it all. Like, get in there. Even if it's hard to stay there, come back again and again. Breathe, feel, allow.
Right. Even if you feel numb, actually feel what is numbness.
Exactly. Numbness is an experience. If you really look in there and get curious and have this spirit that we're trying to highlight right now, which is like, feel. Even if it's not comfortable, I'm right there with it directly in the body, breathing, feeling, allowing, and then letting the responsiveness of how you show up come a little more from that level of how you're showing up than the old just autopilot thing.
I love it.
I love it too.
Well,
like, that's one of the big foundational keys for sure.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was talking about this with another man today. It's like, think about having sex while being distracted versus while being able to feel every cell of your body, right? It's a totally different experience of life, of sex, of everything to actually be available and permeable and taking it in.
Exactly. So you just said two things. Again, I'm going to highlight the paradoxical nature of what we're being asked to show up as men. So on the one hand, there's this in your body, in your cells, alive. Like, that's what I call panther presence, right? So that's this, whoa, if you met a man who was embodying full panther, that's like, whoa, that's hot, that's sexy. He's right there. Now, paradoxically, at the same time, guys, you need to be willing to feel your sea anemone presence, like that little subtle thing that, it just wants to recoil when anything's negative. You have a willingness to feel that too. So you're present with your vitality, your potency, your aliveness as a person. Just really, that's the panther. You can just do that right now. A few breaths. The sea anemone is like, whoa, I'm still a vulnerable little tender underbelly in here, and I'm willing to feel even that. I have enough capacity and courage and strength to even feel the part of me that's just like squirming in my boots, because I'm afraid that if I do the wrong thing, you're going to reject me. Or if I ask you the wrong question, you're never going to want to hang out with me again. Or whatever the fear is, you just meet it. You meet that tender underbelly of your sea anemone aspect of your being while you keep showing up with breath, with vitality, with presence. And then you think of this whole thing as a dance where you're willing to just give it your best shot, enjoy it to the max.
And you think of it as a martial art.
And then you ask questions to the sensei in front of you, which happens to be this incredible human being on planet Earth. And you be willing to ask and learn and grow, and you just have fucking fun for the rest of your life, squirming at the edge of that, and watch in a year or 2 or 5 or however long, you're like, wow, this is getting fun. This is getting amazing.
Well, I love that you just brought in fun too, right? Because it can seem like, oh, this is a hard task to learn all of this. But actually, when you bring in the lens of, how can I enjoy this? How could I have fun with this person? How could we be explorers together? Then it's not, it's not as much work.
Yeah, this shouldn't be ultimate. I mean, obviously, again, paradox. It's a spiritual path. It's work. Bring your devoted heart here. But God, of all the paths to be on, what a lucky, blessed path we are on.
Yes.
It's based in love. It starts in love. The middle is filled with yummy love. And in the end, it's more and more and more nuances and divine flavors and, just these amazing paradoxical, beautiful, divine things that occur both in the way you just walk through life and when you're making love. And yes, along the way, we might be, getting slammed here and there by the woman we're sparring with in the dojo, but that's okay. We just live and love and grow, and it's like a path of evolution and beauty along the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just love it.
Well, thank you so much for this. And where can men find you if they want more of you?
Well, one of the best ways is to just find me on Facebook. There's a lot of videos and information there, and you can friend me or message me directly. My website is there, and there's a new one coming out very soon. That's tobinzivon.com. And otherwise, you just find my phone number and you give me a call, and we just start powwowing like that, because that's often the best ways. We just actually make a connection and we optimize this whole thing. And that's kind of what in some ways it's what I think I was just like a superpower I was given, was to actually help guys. Like, this is all so wonderful and theoretical and fun to talk about, but when we actually are connecting and talking and custom tailoring this very personalized and very direct ways for your journey, your life, what are your particular edges and what are your particular tricky stuck spots, and how do we just dissolve the stuff that's in the way and optimize the parts that are essential and awesome for you to be experiencing, inhabiting, and living, then that's where the real magic happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Shayna. So appreciate you including me on your incredibly beautiful show. I think you're giving, what a gift to the world, you putting this out. It really, every episode is just such a gift to the guys that are listening. Truly.
You.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.